Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Star-Twined Fairies event that has just come back to North America. So, this event follows a slightly different Rare Machine template, so to speak, compared to like traditional collabs, because the event cards, or fairies if I refer to them that way, are lumped in with the regular Rare Machine, and then a couple of Godfest exclusives have been sprinkled in alongside of it. So, it only costs 5 magic stones to actually roll, and the rolling rates are actually much better than you think they might be. 6% chance for the 7 stars, 28.5% for the 6-star fairies, which means the total chance of getting any fairy is 34.5%, and it's more than 1 in 3, and that, in my book, that's actually pretty good. And then in addition to that, there is a 10.5% chance for a 7 or 6-star Godfest exclusive. So if you have never rolled in this event beforehand, this is actually quite a good chance to do so, because a 45% chance to get a goodie of some kind. And the reason I say that if you haven't rolled before is because if you get something new cards tend to give you more abilities to like plug in holes in your monster box, which in turn can let you possibly counter or tackle mechanics that may have been difficult to do otherwise. Because in Pad, no 2 cards are completely identical, and just having a bigger pool of options just gives you the opportunity to mix and match more easily. And all the fairies do come with weapon assist. Maybe not the greatest weapon assist perhaps, but it's just more options available. Maybe you need like a certain combination of like Skillbind Resist, Awoken Bind, Clear Shield, like whatever it may be, maybe these weapon assists might solve that issue for yourself. So if you haven't rolled in this event already, I feel like it's definitely worthwhile to do so. If you have rolled in this event beforehand, it's definitely much less meaningful, because like for myself, I've rolled like a pretty good chunk actually the first time it came around, and I've got, I think, pretty much all of the 6-star fairies. I've got actually surprisingly all the 3 top rarity fairies on my main account. So like for myself and other players who may have rolled already, it's definitely less appetizing because there's no monster exchange option. So even if you do roll a bunch, you could definitely be just horribly disappointed. And in all honesty, obviously the most value is residing in the 7-star fairies, and it's only a 6% chance. And you know, it's not the greatest odds overall, and duplicates of 6-star fairies are not really going to provide you that much value. The first one definitely should be happy about it, but second, third, fourth, no, it's not going to be a happy affair overall. But with that being said, I want to actually take a look at the cards individually to give you a bit of a better idea of what you could expect if you do actually roll in this event. So the first one is Rosalyn, and Rosalyn, like all the fairies in this event, start as a little plant of some kind. And one interesting fact is that all the cards have like their regular primary attribute, and then all their sub-attributes are actually wood. Every single card has a wood sub-attribute, and it might change if like when they transform, or maybe it doesn't change depending on the card itself. So if all attributes an issue, you enter with them as wood, they may change to something else later on. So for Rosalyn and all the other 7-star fairies, another common trait with all of them is that they have 0 awakenings. So there's no skill boost, no bind immunity, no skill bind resist. You definitely are a bit more vulnerable at the very beginning, but thankfully their first transformation step is much lower. 12 turns, 12 turns, 12. They're all actually 12 turns, so it's quite easy to get the first transformation, but unfortunately, kind of like Royal Oak and Seawolf, it's a multi-step transformation process, and unfortunately, instead of being 6 turns for the second step, it is 10 turns, and that's definitely a bigger problem overall, because like sure, you do have some leader skill pre-final transform, but it's quite weak overall, and that means you're going to need to have delays, haste, shields, many different things to possibly try and keep yourself alive during this intense period of vulnerability. So yes, you do transform a little bit easier to start with, but the second transformation step is definitely going to be a bigger hurdle to try and overcome. And then once you are able to do so, like Rosalyn gave you Fire Orb Skyfalls and Locked Fire Orbs, in her final form, she is actually an incredibly hard-hitting card. So, unfortunately for transforming cards, you can't double damage cap, and she does not have a fire sub-attribute, so she's not really going to be dealing any meaningful damage truly with her sub-attribute. If her sub-attribute was red, pretty good chance she can double damage cap, which would have been much more meaningful overall. But she has 4 7 combos and 2 enhanced fire combos along with a nice healthy attack stat. Quite easy to actually, damage cap on her primary attribute. And one thing I forgot to mention is that all the 7-star 4-star fairies come with 7x6 leader skill naturally, which gives you a bigger board. And 12 more orbs makes a big difference because you're much more likely to have the orbs you need to activate, much easier to hit those big combos, and in Rosalyn's case, much easier to hit multiple red combos. And multiple red combos add significant amounts of damage, especially on this bigger board, especially those Skyfalls. I remember when I was playing Rosalyn through Shuri 3 way back in the day, that her fire Skyfalls made stalling impossible, but if it did work out well, tons and tons of damage. So her active skill gives you a attack buff based on the number of enhanced fire combos on your team, and then you create 6 fire orbs over non-fire or non-heart orbs. So you do not make heart orbs, which is definitely a bit problematic, but at the same time, you always give yourself activation because Rosalyn just needs to match 2 unique fire combos, and her active skill gives you 6 fire orbs. So unless the board was locked, you're guaranteed activation, which is quite pleasant. And from a leader skill point of view, she's at 11.11 times effective HP, and that is, in all honesty, kind of like the lowest I feel like you should ever truly go, because once you go below that, you start running into issues of just dying to things you really shouldn't be dying to. Obviously, the ideal situation is having 16 times effective health, so Rosalyn is definitely more on the glass cannon-y side, so to speak, similar to Blackbird and Daytona in terms of the effective health multipliers. With 400 times attack and the enhanced fire combos, it's just incredibly easy to deal spectacular amounts of damage, and the nice advantage of having a primarily shield-oriented leader skill is getting hit by like RCV debuffs may not be as detrimental. Healing is not as problematic. As long as your health and recovery values are on par with each other, healing shouldn't really be much of an issue overall. And she gives you bonus combos and a large amount of follow-up attack, which is again great because you can overcome stuff that would have been annoying otherwise. Maybe in, say, Shuri 3, like the REM draws, or the PEM draws, those things that can appear, they have super resolve, the auto follow attack. If it's big enough, you don't even care about the super resolve, which in turn avoids a problematic hit, even though one of your leaders got swapped. So Rosalyn definitely has quite a nice leader skill overall, and again, there is no restriction aside from being fire typing, so you can bring a wide variety of cards. Maybe you want to bring Void Damage Void, because VDPing does take away from the multi-fire combo aspect, but again, you still can get away without a Void Damage Void active skill. For Natsuru, again, 7x6 board to start, 20 turns of Heart Skyfalls, and then they transform, and then their second transformation, after 10 turns, they actually give you a full Cleric active skill, and this can actually be quite useful in the right situation. Again, I'm going to just reference Shuri 3, because this is where I played most of these cards back in the day, so it just makes more sense in my head, and again, I guess Shuri 3 is coming back with the alt version, but in Shuri 3, there is Floor 3, which gives you a Heart Unmatchable, and then Floor 4, which gives you a Awoken Bind Clear, and usually you only bring one Cleric for the most part, so you could utilize Natsuro's transforming active part here to clear the Heart Unmatchable in Floor 3, and then your regular Cleric for Floor 4. It's just a little small thing, but there are definitely instances where, you do run into Bind, Awoken Bind, Unmatchable, and it's just nice if your primary Cleric doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting, so to speak. And then in their final transform state, they've actually gained a shield. And beforehand, they were just flat HP, which is nice in the sense that, well, you can tank hits without, activation. That does help. But now when you do activate, which is matching 6 or more connected water orbs, you get a respectable amount of damage reduction, and all in total, the health multiplier and the damage reduction gives them 16 times effective health on 7x6. That's actually pretty magical when you think about it, and it gives you bonus combos and auto fall attack. Natsuru could pair well with Royal Oak, and definitely still can, and you don't actually lose any bulk in theory. Yes, you do lose a bit of damage reduction and pushing it into health, but that in turn may enable you to actually survive hits that maybe you couldn't have without the damage reduction. So I think her leader skill has definitely been significantly improved. Her active skill gives you an attack buff based on the enhanced Heart Orb Awakenings on your team, and she comes with 5 of them, and that means even though, like I said, the health and the recovery values are not on par with each other, these enhanced Heart Orbs with this monstrous RCV stat makes it so it's much easier to heal up. Maybe you throw in Gung Ho Belial, maybe you throw in Valkyrie Seal, maybe you throw in the 6-star Blue Fairy that has enhanced Heart combo awakenings. Point of the matter is, it's not too difficult to find those awakenings, and healing shouldn't be that much of an issue. And then her active skill also makes 4 water and Heart Orbs, so you're not guaranteed activation, but you're guaranteed a large amount of healing, which in turn can be quite nice. But remember, on a 7x6 board, it's quite likely you're going to have, 2 water orbs prior to using Natsuro's active active. And again, Royal Oak usage on 7x6 is quite beautiful because he converts red to blue and something else to hearts. So like it's quite a powerful board changer when you play off a larger board. So I'm personally excited to use Natsuru because I always thought she was a blast. Huge amounts of damage output, double 10 combo with VDP, smashingly good time overall. And again, it's my favorite color, so again, personal bias there perhaps. For their weapon assist, like I guess like it's still improved. It's an attack wall above 50%, enhanced heart orb, and enhanced water orbs. So quite a powerful weapon assist overall with bind immunity. It gives you 2 turns of void damage, void effect, and reduces unmatchable, and clears all bind and woken bind. So it's a cleric plus void, damage, void. A unique combination, but if you only have a single copy, I would definitely keep it. Same with Rosalyn. Like their weapon assist can be useful from an awakenings point of view, but I would definitely want to keep them if it's my only copy. For Phyllis, again, 7x6, transforming gives you 2 turns of haste. This is by far the best first step activation because haste is always good. You can haste up your subs in order to get that delay up potentially, and then the other leader, once they use their haste, will hasten them up. Point is, haste is always good from transforming cards. In their interim step, they give you 3 turns of void, damage, void, which may be situationally helpful, but you do need to run void, damage, void in some way, shape, or form for Phyllis teams because they are a cross-oriented leader. And once they do arrive in their final form, they actually have 100% blind and poison resist, which is quite unique. Many crosses and an actual follow-up attack because they don't have auto follow-up, which is definitely a bit problematic, but they do have the big bulk of health and damage reduction, so you do probably want to bring some sort of healing solution unless you're asymmetrically pairing. Their active skill gives you an attack buff based on the number of crosses and changes fire to light and water to heal, so a powerful active skill overall, giving you orb generation. On 7x6, it's amazing because you're converting all of those orbs to something that is desirable, and their leader skill requires you to make 8 or more combos, which should be quite doable considering the fact that you get bonus 3 combos for each cross of 5 light orbs. So you make a couple of, even just 2 light crosses, you've already given yourself 2 from the base combos plus another 6 from the leaders, assuming symmetrical pairing. 8 combos, you've already hit your activation requirements. So combos should be quite easy to make despite having crosses. And there's a generous amount of movement time when you think about it, because if they're dual leaders, that's another 4 seconds plus your subs. So if you don't mind making crosses and you have ways to deal with resolves, or you have an avoid damage void, Phyllis can still be incredibly powerful. At one point in time, she was definitely one of the strongest leaders in the game. And her weapon assist does give a cross, which is quite unique. But again, I feel like I wouldn't change to their new weapon assist unless I have multiple copies. For Lily of the Valley Star Sprout, this is the newest 7-star card to be added here. And their first step is 35% damage reduction. Maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. It's hard to say. But it may give you a little bit of an edge just to survive at the beginning, but you may still need you're obviously going to need other ways to do so. And then their second step gives you a delay. It's unfortunate it wasn't the delay the first time around, unfortunately. So like a delay later on is kind of odd because, you know, it takes 10 turns to charge up and you have to use haste or other delays to get there. And then once she is finally transformed, she's got an interesting myriad of awakenings. Enhanced wood combos, double 10 combo, which we all love because remember, on 7x6, super easy to hit double 10 combos, and they also give a bit of bonus combos. They also have a VDP and 2 TPAs, and TPAs do increase their damage output, and because they actually have a wood sub-attribute, they're definitely much more favorable overall because their primary attribute, their main attribute will definitely cap. Their sub-attribute has a good chance of potentially capping as well, so damage output is definitely higher compared to the other 7 stars. For the active skill itself, it's an attack buff based on the number of TPAs on your team, so you're definitely favoring teams with wood TPAs, but even if you don't have wood TPAs heavily on the team, even like just dual leaders, that's still 40% attack buff. With 7x6, with the enhanced wood combos, there's still probably going to be enough meaningful damage that it should be perfectly alright. And then we look at the leader skill, it's got 12.96 times effective health, definitely a healthy amount of bulk overall, bonus combos and auto follow attack. And all you have to do is match 9 or more combos, which should be quite easy on 7x6. And the fact that you get bonus combos and auto follow attack for each match of exactly 4 connected wood orbs. So you don't have to match a wood TPA. You could match a VDP and you still activate. But for every wood TPA you match, you get more combos and more follow-up attack damage. So obviously you're incentivized to match that particular pattern. And the fact that their own personal damage, especially in the sub-attribute, becomes meaningful, does reward you for that play style overall. So Quite a bulky leader, nice activation requirements considering the fact that you are able to convert light to wood orbs. You don't get heart orb generation, which is definitely a bit on the weaker side, but on 7x6, hopefully you do get enough heart orbs falling down that you can just make the most of the situation. For their weapon assist for Miria, they have actually quite a good spread of awakenings. If you think about it, bind immunity, skill boost, team HP, tape resist. And their active skill gives you 2 turns of haste. This is kind of like the 10 draw almost, except instead of Cloud, it's tape resist. Instead of a cleric, it's 3 turns of 5 times attack for leaders. But at the same time, if you did have multiple copies, because I probably would like to at least play around with them first. If you had multiple copies, I think this is actually quite a strong weapon assist, considering that we love the 10 draw. Tape resist may be something that might be difficult for you to address, and generally speaking, you may only be using it for the haste aspect. So, like I said, bind immune, skill boost, haste, team HP, it's pretty strong of a weapon assist overall. Like, I feel like when she does fall off in terms of leader skill viability, this would be a nice fallback weapon assist overall. And that concludes all the 7 stars, which is, in all honesty, the main chases from this event. I still think the 6 stars can have value, and I want to at least take a look at them reasonably quick. So, first 6 star I want to look at is the Orb Skin. So if you do have the funds to do so, you can directly purchase them. And this Carnation Flower gives you 2 turns of haste and 2 skill boosts on a 27 turn cooldown. So it is a longer cooldown to, get this initial transformation aspect, but haste is always pleasantly welcomed with 4 effective skill boosts total. And when they do transform, they got Super Jam Resist, double 10 combo with the correct color sub-attribute, double VDP, and double row. And their active skill wants you to match... Well, their active skill gives you an attack buff based on the VDPs, and it changes water and light to fire. So it's going to flood your board with fire orbs. You don't get the 7x6 to start with, but again, you're going to have lots of red orbs just with this active skill. And the bulk is actually quite good. It's just as good as Miria. So, this is a respectable amount of bulk and lots of bonus combos. So the active or leader skill needs you to match 6 or more connected fire orbs, and you get bonus combos in matching 6 or more connected fire orbs. So you do want to find someone who can pair with them for auto follow-up attack, but this is quite a powerful kit overall. They do big damage, you can stack rows, VDPing does fulfill the activation requirements, their personal damage is going to be quite large, and with those bonus combos coming in, you're not going to have issues hitting that 10 combos. So I actually think they're a reasonably strong leader. They can work well if you have a blob-oriented style, because when you think about it, 6 or more orbs is counting 10 plus still, so you could play with blobs if that is desirable for yourself, or you can just simply activate off of 6 orbs and just trigger just rows. I think it's actually a reasonably strong leader skill. Just be mindful of the fact that you don't generate heart orbs, but the fact that your health and recovery are perfectly balanced, these are pretty satisfying to look at numbers when I think about it. So I think they're actually a pretty strong leader overall, surprisingly strong considering it's not top rarity. And then their weapon assist gives you actually quite nice awakenings. Enhanced heart orb, skill boost, double enhanced fire orbs, and then you get 3 turns of 2 times attack for subs, 3 turns of auto healing, and then 2 turns of 75% damage reduction. And you generally need a shield in most cases. I'm just going to keep referencing Shuri 3 because I think it's a pretty nice dungeon overall in terms of accessibility. You need a damage reduction shield for the final boss when they dip below 50% health. And again, if you have multiple copies or you don't think you can get value as a leader, this weapon assist can be a strong option because it's increasing your healing output, increasing your skill boost, increasing your passive damage. So it's a pretty nice weapon assist to have, and that's going to be kind of the trend or theme for many of these cards. The weapon assist can be beneficial in the right situation. For this Darkshade Mushroom, I forgot the name where they transform, they have double skill boost and they give you 5 turns of shield. So that may or may not make a difference. But when they are transformed, Shuri does give you 100% blind resist, 2 enhanced fire combos, and double 7 of a VDP. So they will do reasonable amounts of damage. The enhanced fire combos can synergize with Rosalyn. They have a 2-turn cooldown, which gives you an RCV buff, an attack buff just for the card itself, which can help their main attribute guaranteed to hit damage cap, which is nice. Basically, think of it like an extra 7 combo. And then unlock the whole board and create 4 hearts over non-fire orbs. So on Rosalyn teams, when you think about it, you can unlock the board, get those heart orbs every other turn with an RCV buff, with a attack buff for themselves, and then Rosalyn can convert more orbs to fire. It is definitely a strong option for your Rosalyn teams. And while the enhanced heart orb may not be truly needed, healing easier is never a bad thing if it just happens to come with a card, and the super blind resist is nice overall. You can definitely put together a respectable Rosalyn team with having this card as a sub. For Saxifrage, Starlight Flower, they have double skill boost and double haste when they transform. So nice, 4 effective skill boosts. And they're actually becoming a respectable sub as well when it actually will change. Come on, Tsubaki bot. Come on, Discord. There we go. Alrighty. When they are transformed, they have a 7-10 combo, 3 enhanced heart orbs. So, again, Natsuru teams can definitely benefit. They do have meaningful personal damage, and their active skill is now quite powerful. You have 4 turns of 35% damage reduction, and like I said, a shield is definitely going to be needed, and it's on a 5-turn cooldown. So, it's essentially a looping shield, which is great. And then you have 1 turn of 2.5 times RCV, and then 1 turn of 2.5 times orb movement time. So you're buffing movement time, you're buffing RCV, essentially a looping shield. This is quite a powerful utility sub to have overall, considering the fact they actually have meaningful personal damage. Definitely a great option to bring on your Natsuru teams. And I like the fact that, like, within the event itself, you can actually roll cards that are valuable for the 7-star leaders. As a weapon assist, I forgot to look at the red one. Actually, I should jump back to the red one. But for the Amanita keepsake, it does give you a shield and unmatchable and Awoken Bind clear. So again, it's a weird combination of Awoken Bind clear and unmatchable and damage reduction. Maybe you need that combination, maybe. For Saxifrage, they have a Healer Killer Awakening, and they give you 3 turns of 75% damage reduction, and then Orb Movement Time and RCV buff. Again, maybe you need these. I'm going to keep citing Shuri 3, because on floor 2, there is an RCV and a Movement Time debuff that is guaranteed to happen. This active skill could overcome it, but of course, again, they can actually just overcome it as their base form of their active skills. So I think quite a nice sub overall. For Ipomoea, I can't pronounce flower names. They give you a Water Orb Skyfall buff when they transform, but it's only 7%, so it's definitely on the weaker side. When they do transform, 3 rows, too many VDPs, unfortunately, and they give an active skill that gives you Void's Attribute Absorption and then Void's Damage Absorption on a 7-turn cooldown. So that's fast charging. And then it gives you 1 turn of 3 times attack for all subs. That's actually quite meaningful. You're basically guaranteeing your subs hit big numbers every 7 turns, and a 1-turn delay, which is kind of odd, but again, maybe that 1-turn delay does open up some possibilities. It's a low cooldown at 7 turns for what it's doing, so it's actually not bad overall. So obviously, it only works for mono water teams, and again, her personal damage is quite lackluster, but again, if you need to squeeze in a card for that reason, this could be a respectable choice overall. For Dionaea, I'm not a huge fan of this plant, unfortunately. Double skill boost, 3 turns delay is actually not bad, but when they do transform, I feel like they just don't fit anywhere that great. They have 3 Ls, which is wasteful. It should be just 1 L and then 2 other things. 777 combo, triple enhanced wood combo, so respectable amounts of personal and passive damage, but the Ls go a bit to waste. Their active skills on a 4-turn cooldown that gives you 2 turns of wood orbs appearing locked, 2 turns of orb movement time, 2 turns of attack buff for the card itself, and 2 turns of an attack buff for wood. Now the thing is, most wood teams are involving Nautilus in some way, shape, or form to a certain extent, and it gives you an attack buff anyway, so the attack buff goes to waste. The movement time buff is cool, but we do have other options to give movement time. I just feel like she's a card that is just eclipsed and outpaced by other available options, and that's the main reason why I don't value her as highly. For the weapon assist, it can be possibly reasonable for your wood teams. It does give you a 3-turn delay and 2 turns of RCV buffing with bind immunity, 40% jam resist. Again, maybe you don't have that deep of a monster box. This could be a respectable delay option to bring out as needed. For this Pansy flower, they give you a 2 turns of haste when they transform, which is great. And when they do transform, they're a wild rainbow card. They have 4 skill charges, which means they charge it by 5 turns if you match all rainbow. So this 30-turn cooldown becomes potentially a 6-turn cooldown. And that means they are a full unmatchable clear, full bind Awoken Bind clear, and then you get 3 turns of RCV and 3 turns of attack buff for physical and attacker types. So you can't fully loop it, unfortunately, but pretty good uptime overall in terms of RCV and attack buffing if you don't have other options to do so, and it can be your cleric that does potentially charge up every 6 turns. Obviously, the big problem is if you don't hit that skill charge, this is a stupendously long cooldown. But again, maybe you do have other options because, like, I don't know, it's hard to say. Like, it's a lot of skill charge for what it could do, but then again, you can also make the argument that maybe with so many skill charges, you inherit some other active skill over top that could be even better potentially, and then that will charge up incredibly fast as well. So you do have, I guess, that option overall for Pansy. For their weapon assist, they have an exceptional amount of Recover Bind Awakenings, which is just an underutilized awakening, I'd say, overall, and an attacker killer. Gives you an attack buff per skill charge, which is kind of weird, like kind of rare, and then a Rainbow Board Changer. I feel like maybe I would stick with their 4 skill charge form because it is unique in that sense. For Daffodil, I wanted Daffodil so badly when Phyllis first came out, because when they do transform, they become a tremendous utility sub for Phyllis, because they have 3 crosses, so their personal damage is respectably high. Jammer resist, so with Phyllis's Poison and Blind, you add in this little Daffodil, you have resist to all 3 of those hazards. That is definitely quite nice overall. And then the active skill gives you a board unlock, which lets Phyllis do her active skill happily, a movement time buff, an RCV buff, and now it's an attack buff for the card itself every 2 turns. Incredibly nice. You can overcome all these nasty debuffs. With Phyllis giving an attack buff, you've covered attack, RCV, movement time buffing. You've resisted blind, jammer, and poison just with these 2 cards. It's quite great overall, and the copious amount of movement time lets you, match things into position. So a great option for Phyllis teams overall. Weapon assist, I wouldn't pursue it unless you had multiple copies due to the high utility, but it does give you an RCV buff, an attack buff, and a massive amount of damage reduction for 2 turns, and a bonus combo. So it does a bit of everything, but I would definitely want to keep it in their base form for the most part. Alright, this Alluring Angel can definitely be a strong candidate potentially for your Phyllis teams. It gives you a 2-turn delay with 2 skill boosts, so that's quite nice overall. And then when they transform, they have double 10 combos, so big personal damage with the correct color sub-attribute, and a Cross Awakening, and enhanced light combos. So all those crosses you're making with Phyllis become even more powerful. But the reason why they're also strong is the fact that they give you, well, no Skyfalls is not the reason, but they make Fire Orbs unmatchable, and Phyllis converts Fire Orbs away, so this is not a problem. It's kind of like how Garu is so good for Blackbird teams. You make water unmatchable, Blackbird converts water away, it's not even a problem at all. So you get that aspect there, and then you have 2 turns of Void Damage Void. You need Void Damage Void as Phyllis. You're not making a VDP in crosses. No one has VDPs, so you need Void Damage Void, and the fact that it lasts 2 turns is quite magical on only a 5-turn cooldown. I would definitely want to roll this card for my Phyllis teams, especially because I don't have Exodia, and not many people have Exodia because, when was the last time Yu-Gi-Oh! Collab actually came here? Point of the matter is, quite a strong option for Phyllis teams, or even any light team that doesn't want to match VDPs. It's a low cooldown Void Damage Void that can be meaningful. And then the weapon assist is 3 team RCVs, which is a significant boost to your healing output, and it gives you a 4-turn delay. So this is actually quite powerful as well. Like, that's a big delay and a huge amount of healing output for your team. Now, for the most part, you want to make sure you have enough health to tank the largest reasonable hit, but once you've achieved that threshold, whatever it may be, you want to have as much RCV as possible to make it easier to restore that health so you can keep tanking hits over and over again. For this Darkshade flower, this is bringing back the poison meta, or trying to. You get these Poison Blessing Poison Blessing Awakenings. And Poison Blessing works, the way it works is that Poison Orbs will fall down naturally as part of regular Skyfalls, which is a little dangerous when you think about it, but when they do transform, you disable the Poison Orb matching effect, and you need to match 2 or more colors, which definitely should be doable considering their active skill makes 3 fire, 3 dark, hearts, and poison orbs. And you're immune to those poison matching. So, like, in theory, if you want to do some poison shenanigans, your effective health isn't the highest, but, like, it could do cool things. I did it and I cleared, like, Shuri 2 at some point long ago, so, like, it still can clear stuff, but, like, it's gimmicky for the most part. I'm not a huge fan of, like, hazard-based teams, but when you think about it, this active skill is quite great. Like, it's a 2-turn cooldown, so with 2 of these cards, you're guaranteeing yourself continuous activation with an attack buff for themselves. And these Poison Blessings do add large amounts of personal damage. For their weapon assist, thankfully, it gives you another Poison Blessing if you really love that poison playstyle, and triple team HP. And you can't inherit it if you don't have all the awakenings, so you gotta get that Poison Blessing. So right away it's just awkward. It gives you 2 turns of Poison Orbs more likely to appear by 10%, and then 1 turn of ignoring damage and attribute absorption. On an 8-turn cooldown, which is short, but the drawbacks are too high. And then finally we come to the Darkshade Flower. And the Darkshade Flower is unfortunate because they don't transform. Well, they are transforming, which means they can't double damage cap. So this large amount of personal damage goes to waste. It's a bunch of killers, and when they transform, it's just killers and double 10 combos. So yes, their sub-attribute will cap for sure. Main attribute caps, but like, we want to get more out of this card. So like, sure, they hit stupendously hard against virtually all typings, but do we really need more hard-hitting cards? There are lots of hard-hitting cards available, and the fact that their active skill is a self-delay hurts my soul inside. Like, it's not even one turn, it's 2 turns of self-delaying, so you're basically shooting yourself in the foot, and you just void damage void for 2 turns on a 2-turn cooldown. So in theory, you could just never use any other active skill if you really want, and always have uptime and void damage void, but I don't think that's a good idea. Skill delay resist doesn't protect you from your own self-delays either. Like, I have used a self-delay at one point. Like, the one time I used a self-delay efficiently was in co-op, and it was when my Alina on Nautilus teams would overcharge, and I would self-delay her by 1 turn, so then she can transform, because I inherited Green-Nay. This was quite a while ago. It worked out well, but, like, self-delaying is just a lot of juggling unnecessarily for the most part, I feel. And with that being said, I feel like she's just a bit of an underwhelming card. Doesn't fit anywhere that great. Her Weapon Assist gives you board lock, and then 2 turns of void damage void on a 16-turn cooldown. So, you know what? That's actually not terrible if you need void damage void, but again, it's just something I would like to have 1 copy of and hopefully never roll again. But with that being said, that is all the fairies that are featured in the Star Twined Fairies event, and there is definitely value to be found within the machine. Obviously, it's top-heavy, but I still like to get at least 1 copy of every 6-star because they do have value. And like, again, having more options for weapon assist does make your life easier overall when you are team building. But with that being said, let me know what you think about this event in the comments down below. Do you think it is actually worth rolling in? And if you did roll, was it a fruitful venture? With that being said, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.